Hey, Nathan, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Mark. I greatly appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, it's a real pleasure. People who listen to the show, Nathan, they know I'm a hockey fanatic. So even at 55, I'm still playing beer league up here in Toronto. It's shut down temporarily now, and it's just a pure joy. The whole thing is a pure joy. And as a goalie, I'm amazed, by the way, at how much things have changed over the 25 years since I was playing high school hockey. But boy, oh boy, what a great sport.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that once it's in your blood, it's hard to get out. And being a goalie, I don't know if you can imagine even 25 years before that with wearing no helmets and the limited padding. I see clips and I always shake my head. I'm like, these guys were nuts. People think we're crazy now. God, those goalies back then are beyond crazy.
Well, I'm sure you've got all these stories, but we practiced in the morning, when I was playing prep school hockey. And so in the, late 80s, the goalie equipment was not spectacular, particularly throat guards. Yeah. So, when we were on the ice at 6:45, I had to be aware, because 16-year-old kids are not thinking through whether or not it's appropriate to take a slap shot from the hash marks on the second shot, at 10 to 7 in the morning. You've seen that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm petrified to skate with young kids.
So yeah, we had lots of fun in the day. And Nathan, you're the first professional athlete we've had on board, but we see so many synergies, between let's call it super high-end performers. And whether it's in business or athletics or other stages of life, there are these common themes. And in our conversations, you always default to those. But that's why I'm so excited to chat with you here today. But let's start with the Blue Jackets. How's the team doing this year?
The team's doing as well as I think they can be right now. It's a bit of a rebuild period. As many people know, big trades in the summer, big trades over the last 2 years really have changed the dynamic of this roster. For myself, I'm recovering from hip surgery, so I'm not really part of anything. For me, it's just, rehabbing, getting healthy, and giving myself a chance to come back and, further my career, whether it's this year or next year. Just getting the opportunity to do that. But, the Blue Jackets, it's been fun to watch. They're a young team. They got a good coach in Brad Larson. He's, when you talk about little things of work, accountability, habits, all of that, he has that. He's a good leader. This is his first job as a head coach in the NHL. So, tough. For me, I've had a long history with him. He was my captain. I think it was my second year pro.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have a long history, a good relationship. I'm rooting for him. I know he's a good guy. I know he wants to do it right. So I'm hoping they can turn things around and be a good team in the coming years. Tell
us a little bit about your journey to professional sport. So how you made it to the NHL, Nathan.
Yeah, it's a lot of people look at me, right? The physical stature is what it is. There's no hide behind that. I'm 5'4". I only know this because I'm working on a book and I was reading things. I'm actually the smallest player since 1937.
Wow.
To play in the NHL. So it's to me, it's an awesome accomplishment. Not one I've actually really ever thought about growing up. Not one I cared about. For me, I ignored all of that because I had this internal belief that no matter what, I was going to power through and get to the NHL. Being smaller, everyone knows all the things. You got to outwork everyone. You got to do this. It's an everyday tryout. That's what's really been my career. It's practice. Practice to me is a game. I'm on a tryout in practice. So, and that's been in my head since I've been a child. I've been blessed that I have a mother and father who, not only teach me, but they are living proof of it. They're living proof of the dedication. They're living proof of the work, the respect. It's different, when you have someone that teaches you but doesn't show it in their actions, and you see it probably in your life as well as a business owner and running businesses. There's leaders that will teach, but then you look at their actions and you say, well, that doesn't add up.
Right.
For me, I was fortunate. I had parents that did both. We grew up poor. We didn't have much, but what we did have has built all of us kids to what we are today. And those are the intangible things that, if you ask me today, what would you want your kids to be? Those are the things I would want my kids to be. Nothing else. Yeah. So it was a unique journey. It was a journey of failure. It was a journey of perseverance, injuries, even during my pro career, perseverance. Many setbacks, many hard days, many days where you doubted yourself, and many days that were good days. But I've seen it all in my journey. And that's what makes me confident, going further into any journey that I go into, because, I've got to live all these experiences, and, I've dealt with them all, and it's been a fun journey.
Well, I think anybody who's had a major success in their career would tell a similar story about the perseverance and the failures and the importance of a value system, that kind of gets them through, that you were blessed to have from your parents, and many of us were blessed to have. So Nathan, you remind me correct me if I'm wrong, but you ended up playing for Boston College. And
correct, yes.
Yeah, great way to great path to the NHL. So you get a great education at Boston College, and then who'd you get drafted by?
The Buffalo Sabres.
Sabres.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Buffalo Sabres. Yeah, drafted in the 5th round. So going to Boston College, growing up, I was a kid with a lot of fire, a lot of energy. And we know what happens with fire and energy. It can be negative and it can be positive. It can go both ways.
Yeah.
And the way I was as a kid, I had a lot of it. But when I went to Boston College with Jerry York, one of the greatest mentors Jerry York is, and also Father Tony Penna, who also works for Boston College.
And who are those two gentlemen as far as Boston College is concerned? The coach,
coach and the priest of the athletic department. When I think about my career, when I think about my life, God, those two are just integral in just shaping who I am today. Those two, I always say the greatest thing about Jerry York, he doesn't change you. When you go there, he doesn't try to change everything about you, your game, and who you are. He lets you be you. They help direct that into a positive way, and they help shape you. Father Tony Penna, who is there as a mentor on the side, he's there to meet with. He's there for you to, pick his brain about life, what other issues you have going on in your life, whether personal, whether it's someone else. They do such a good job there that I don't think there's a university that can match it.
Wow.
When I look at their success and what they do, every kid that ends up leaving that program is a good kid, is a good person, does things the right way. Jerry doesn't look for the best hockey players. He makes sure he has good people in his organization. And, for him, he's over 1,000 wins in college hockey, which is incredible. And he's still winning, which is funny too, but, going there really shaped, I think, who I am today. It just really helped me understand myself and how to just rethink in a more positive way. Very, very lucky. And then being drafted by Buffalo, getting the opportunity there, and very, very fortunate for that.
Well, it's interesting, Nathan, because you said, hey, they allow you to be you. So, you came on board, they kind of looked at the values, they help instill character and build character, but they allow you to still be you. And it's one of the reasons there's so many synergies between, high performing individuals. I think that's a big thing today in professional sales, where, first of all, it's a hugely important part, of course, any business, right? If everything starts with a sale. If you can't create a customer, your business doesn't exist. But as 1 in 9 people in the US right now in a professional sales job, far too much demand than supply for great salespeople right now. So it's really kind of a seller's market from a salesperson perspective. But what you're finding is a huge amount of transition or churn, because many organizations don't allow the individual to be themselves. And there's a conflict, because you get hired on, you want to be in sales, but you're told how to use a certain script and how to close and how to behave and how to become salesy. And people don't want to behave that way. You don't really want to cajole somebody into doing something. You want to help people, but you don't want to cajole them or trick them. So there's this real challenge, frankly, in professional sales and some confusion. And then overall, what it's causing is buyers are fatiguing of dealing with salespeople. There's just too many of these people where you can't have that trust. And the salespeople aren't enjoying the roles either, because they don't have any leeway to be themselves and to behave the way they want to. I've always wondered, Nathan, just at your level, when you think of how incredibly difficult it is to persevere, to make it to the NHL. We're Canadians. For those, listening to this, I'm Canadian. The junior hockey leagues and the recreational hockey leagues in Canada are unbelievable. And of course, so many good players. And every parent thinks their child's the one, and they've got them in hockey training and off-ice training and weight training and strategy and all this stuff. But the odds of making it are so flabbergastingly low. What are these attributes when you look around a hockey dressing room and some of the best teams you've been on? Are these just the most talented people in the world, or what are those attributes that got them into that room?
It's a great question, because there is such a wide variety of types of players in the NHL. And even to touch on what you were just mentioning briefly about salespeople and letting them be themselves. And, if you asked me today, hey, could you teach my son how to shoot a puck?
Yeah.
I would say, tell him to go in the garage and figure it out.
Right.
Because there's no wrong way to shoot a puck. There's no wrong way to get a sale. Us in the NHL level, we perfected unorthodox playing. If you watch certain players in the NHL, and you can see it in all sports, baseball, people who pitch and batters and all that, you would say, gosh, that's weird.
Yeah.
A golf swing. You would say, that is a weird golf swing. But you know what they did? They perfected it by the 10,000 hour rule. They perfected it. Yeah. And that's what a lot of it is, because it's all about understanding yourself and knowing what you're good at and sticking to your strengths. For me, I understood that. And for me, it was just to perfect the way I was as a player, not the way the coach wanted me to play as a player, but the way I was as a player, because somewhere along the lines, we'll fit that into a team mentality, and then we'll have success. But then to touch on what you just asked, it's a mindset.
Yeah.
And the mindset could be so many things. It's discipline. It's your habits. It's your values, your competitiveness, which is a huge one. I remember when I first came into the NHL, my first training camp, I remember being petrified and not knowing if I was going to fit in. But after leaving that training camp, I always asked myself, well, how does that guy have 10 years in the NHL? I don't understand. He's not that good. The more I watched that guy, the more I understood that guy. I came back and said, gosh, he's good. No wonder why he's in the NHL. Why? Because it's every single day. We look at consistency. We look at everything. It's every day. It's a commitment. So many players that I've looked at and didn't appreciate, and then I ended up appreciating him in the end, because I saw it every day. I was like, every day he is the same. Same game. You know what you're getting. It's a mindset to do that. It's very difficult to do that. People don't really realize how hard it is to do that. When your job's on the line every day to come out and perform the same, it's difficult. What you get at the NHL level is that. The difference in the NHL and the AHL is that. There is great skill out there. We see it in the McDavids, the Matthews, the Marner. They are more gifted than us. They have a talent that's beyond belief when you watch them. But they still have a drive. They still work. That talent didn't just pop up to them in their back pocket. They perfected their talent. All these guys, I grew up, I'm the same age as Sidney Crosby. So, you got to see him in the media since he was a young kid to what he is now. I've gotten to compete against him when I was young in young tournaments, and
Okay.
to me, he's the ultimate guy in the NHL. He's the ultimate leader. If I start my team, it's still with him because of the leader he is. I wouldn't say he's the most talented. No, he has the most drive. He's a competitive kid, and he
Mhm.
wants to win. And when we talk about those intangibles that you have, the mindsets and all that, the habits, the work ethic, the competitiveness, all of those things he has, and that's what separates him from a lot of other great leaders, is because of that. But when we talk about the differences of leagues, juniors, and that's what you see with young kids, I see it at the American League level, and I see it at the NHL level. They come in and it's like, this is hard. This is a long season. It's a grind. It's
Kidding.
this and it's that. Or a kid says, well, I don't understand why I should be in the NHL because that person's in the NHL. But they don't understand the role that person plays every single day. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And not many people could do it. I love listening to all the people that say, oh, I could play, I do this. It's like, okay, well, if you could play and you were good enough, there's probably 30 scouts at every game. They wouldn't miss you.
Hmm.
And if they're watching you for 3, 4, or 5 years, they ain't gonna miss you.
Right.
You'll get the opportunity somewhere. So, let's just see if they pick you up. Yeah, we're very fortunate for what we do. I
Yeah.
love it. I love the game. It's dedication. It's a lifestyle. It's not just about a sport. It's a lifestyle. And that's the mentality I think you have to have.
Well, you touched on this is where the synergies always come into play. It was funny the way you talked about people who were successful, Nathan. They almost end up being these attributes that we recruit and hire on in professional sales. It starts with you talked about mindset. Today, what our company does, we come in a lot of times and take a look at an existing sales organization, usually with a mid-sized company, mid to small business, and say, okay, let's take a look at what we've got here today and make recommendations on how to dramatically improve performance. So they bring us in for kind of an assessment or a discovery. The mindset on a salesperson is the first thing we kind of go to. There's nothing, but there are talented people out there. But if you don't really have a growth mindset in our world, particularly now, if you used to do something 20 years ago, it's not working anymore. So,
Yeah.
We've got to have this growth mindset. We want to be lifelong learners and continuing to develop our craft. In our world today, technology has really jumped in there as well. You've got to start to become capable with technology and professional sales. And I make, again, always these sports analogies, but I make the analogy to the 20-year gap I had in playing goalie, where, because when I was playing beer league, I started playing out for 20 years. And I decided I had to go back in net while I still could. The technology in terms of the goalie equipment was so different. The job is different now. The role is different. You don't come out to the hash marks to challenge somebody because you can actually take a puck anywhere. You're just blocking it. So I think you starting with that mindset, critically important. Then you went to the values. It's the first thing we hire on. We want to share kind of a culture that we're trying to create in terms of a sales organization, and we'll name the values we're looking for. And you try and find out, hey, does that person, maybe there's no right and wrong, but are they right or wrong for us based on the culture and the value system we want to generate as part of that team? Part of that team. And part of that is, by the way, being a good teammate, even in professional sales. We want to succeed, but it's not hockey. It's not succeeding at the expense of somebody who has to lose the game. I always say I like sales teams to be competitive, but it's golf. I want you to play really well, Nathan, and then maybe I'd like to beat you by one stroke.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that when you lose your ball, I'm not going into the woods to find it with you. Of course I am. I want to help you succeed. And then I'll try and maybe beat you by one stroke at the end. I'm sure that wouldn't happen given the fact you're a professional athlete. But then you talk about the work ethic and the habits and that consistency. And I think those are things we all struggle with. and try and build in. I mean, I think we all are habit driven, but not all of our habits are good.
Yeah.
So I think we always end up doing the same things, but not all of those habits are good. And it takes that discipline. And of course, the discipline for folks at your level of athletics, just off the charts, just off the charts. You know, one of the things we always talk about these days, Nathan, in terms of growth orientation, the importance of coaching. Tell me a little bit about your experience. You referenced it with Boston College, but not only the coaching, but the different types of coaches you might have on a professional team today, not just the head coach, but the fitness coach and the mindset coach and all those things.
Yeah, like you said, in your 20 something years of how goalie changes, and this is my 14th year, and it's amazing how the NHL has changed.
Wow.
When I'm coming in, it's still old school. If you're a young kid, you got to prove yourself. You got to start in the AHL no matter what. Prove yourself there. You'll get a chance to play on lower lines in the NHL. Prove yourself there and move up. Today's a bit different. We're dealing with a different athlete. We're dealing with different kids, different mindsets, as you are in business as well. And now you have development coaches. You might have 2 or 3 development coaches on a team that some see different aspects of the game. You have 3 different assistant coaches. You have your head guy. Teams will have either a psychologist or, someone with the mental side of the game on staff that you can see. You have your strength coach, and some teams are different. Some teams have a nutritionist, a consultant that you can reach out to do different various things. As you said, with technology and businesses, technology in sports is grown just the same, just different. Technology, how we measure our bodies, how we measure our food, how we measure, our fitness, our training, our tracking. All of those things have changed drastically as well during this game. And as you know, it's a long season.
Oh boy.
As a player, you go through so many ups and downs, and this is what I've taken away for 14 years. To be a good coach, it comes down to interpersonal relationships. That is coaching. You need to coach the person. There's a team, but the way the game is today and the way the kids are today, you need to have relationships to where, like we talked about earlier, gaining trust. You need to understand where I'm coming from. I need to understand who you are and what you're about. Then we can make this work. The old school method, I was a coach, I come in, I scream at you, I yell at you, I have no relationship with you, I don't want a relationship with you. You do it or you're done mentality, it's over. That's not in the game anymore. But if I always tell someone this. People are always like, well, it's really hard to cut players. It's really hard to sit players who you have a good relationship with. And I said, that's false. I think it should be easier. If we have a really good relationship, I could easily come to you and say, Mark, listen, I'm going to give you another game, but these are the 3 things I need.
Right.
Like, where I'm coming from. I want to give you another game for an opportunity. And if you can't do these 3 things, I'm going to have to sit you.
Right.
We have a good relationship, and it ends right there. Because I know you're human, and we should be able to have that personal relationship after that message. I still should be able to walk in and say, how's your family doing? How's your kids doing? You guys need anything? Good. Okay. There should be no difference in that. And when you look at coaching and the way that's changed in 20, 25 years, same in business, that's the most important thing, relationships.
It's exactly the same thing, Nathan, in sales today. It is exactly the same thing. We were talking earlier before we started the podcast. There was a date and time where, when the economy was rough, it was very difficult to get a professional sales job, the kind of professional sales job you wanted, where you received proper training, support. And there was really only a handful, a couple of dozen major companies who really invested to properly train people. But it was extraordinarily difficult to get those jobs, particularly during recession periods in the economy. And when you're in those jobs, by the way, it's pretty black and white, of course, very
Yeah.
black and white. Hit the goal, they'll go find somebody else who will. And you
Yeah.
could have almost draconian sales leaders,
Yeah.
and certainly had a couple of those along the path.
Yeah.
Hey, just get there, tough, tough, tough. But it's exactly as you mentioned today. It's different today. So because as I mentioned, 1 in 9 people in a professional sales job in the US right now, churn, in many cases, somewhere between 20 and 35%, depending upon the industry. So people moving all the time. And as companies grow, they want more and more salespeople. So it's tough to get them. It's tough to retain them. And you mentioned it. So this is why there's so many analogies that are so good. You said the coach today has to get to know the player. In the past, they didn't worry about knowing the player. I absolutely believe that on sales teams today, your team needs to know you care before they care what you know. So our coaching and counsel, often we say at the beginning, you sit down and try and understand that individual. What are they trying to do with their career? Why is it important to them? What things are important to them personally? What is success for them? Find out, do they want to one day go into management, or do they want to be a direct contributor? Or is this a stepping stone into going into other business disciplines? Hey, I'd like to get into marketing. I might want to get into, operations or delivery or finance. The more that they understand, you have to start there. If you don't care about the team, you're not right for management.
Yeah.
If you actually don't enjoy developing people and coaching people, which, as you know, is just incredibly difficult to do, then maybe you're not right. If you're better at telling people what to do instead of asking them and leading them to the answer, this management may not be for you. So how interesting, because you've really, the last 10 or 15 years, that has changed night and day in business and in sales specifically. You've lived the last 13 years in the NHL, seeing the change in the NHL.
Yeah.
I think the outsiders have even seen that, right? The old, I won't name anybody because some of them have moved on, but you see totally different approaches, and that comes out a lot in the interviews too.
Absolutely. Have you heard of the expression chief goal officer?
No, I've never heard of it.
I can't remember the book off top. I'll have to send the name to it when we finish, but incredible book. Talks about leadership, and he talks about being a chief goal officer. So mainly his job is to make sure, as a leader, everybody else is hitting the goals that they want to hit. That's it. That's his job. So you come in, what are your goals? What do you want to get to? Like you said before, maybe it's in this department, maybe it's in that department. How can we help you get there? In the meantime, how can you help this company get here?
Yeah.
I'm going to look out for your long-term goals, and you help our organization, our company, on these short-term goals. It's a give and take method. But as we know with humans, happiness is growth.
Yes.
And people always want to say, what's happiness? What's happiness? It's growth in whatever you're doing or whatever you love to do. And it's, for all of us, it's all different things. But as long as we have continuous growth, we'll be happy, because that's us, human nature. We need to grow. Yeah. We need to learn, grow. And that to me, that expression, when I first read that, I was like, chief goal officer. I was like, God, it's a good way to look at it. I've never looked at it that way, that you're basically operating the goals of everybody else. And he was talking from the leadership, the CEO of the company. That was his method of working with all the employees in the company. It was getting on the ground, understanding his employees, dealing with the decisions they were dealing with every day, so he can better dictate which avenues to go down. And then at the end, he said, I was their chief goal officer. I was there to make sure everyone was going into what their goals want to be, not just mine, what their goals want to be. I thought that was unique. Yeah.
Oh, what a great, I wrote that down, Nathan. Thank you for that. I'm going to for sure check out that book. Boy, think of being a member of that team where, somebody's looking out for your own personal and professional development. And you're so right. I think our joy and challenge and purpose comes from progressing, from personal development. And certainly, absolutely, those are the folks we want on our teams, folks who get enjoyment from that. And, and as you know, far better, 100 times better than me. It's not easy. There's a lot of pain and suffering and challenge along that path, and adversity, let's call it. Many of us who are even doing our pelotons and trying to increase our FTPs on our pelotons these days, there's 3 or 4 minutes during that ride that aren't super pleasant, perhaps. I can only imagine at your level of professional athletics, where what's required to maintain and perform at that level, but you've got to be you're a performance athlete. It's a performance sport. For those not familiar with hockey, in a typical 60-minute game, how long is the average player going to be on the ice?
So you're looking at, if you're an average player, overall a game, you're looking at probably 15, 18 minutes of ice time through the game. Shift lengths, you're going anywhere between 30 and 45. So they can break it down to how many shifts you play during a game. And that's a full out sprint. It has to be, especially now with the way the game's playing. But as us athletes, that's funny. Like when I train, I try to train so hard that the season's a joke. That's my method. For me, I track everything, track heart rate. I was playing in games to where I was going full out, but my heart rate was only 155, 160 max heart rate. And to me, that's just to make sure I know I'm in good shape. So that's how I'll train in the summer to be able to train during the season. And we track all that. Like we talked about the technology. We track everything, our sleep, everything that we do. That way we know, not because that dictates everything. As we talked about before, knowledge is most important. That's the number one thing, is knowledge and the continuing learning. So now I know knowledge about my body. I know how I work. I know how I function. I know what I need to get to, numbers wise. And there's no difference, right? We talked about different jobs. You could track everything throughout the business that you're in. You get to know yourself greater than anything. Self-awareness, self-development, all of those things, honest reflection are some of the greatest tools that we could ever. If I could gift tools to people, I wish I could send the box to everyone. Like this is everyone's gift to the world. It's reflection and it's self-awareness. If you have those two things, you're ready for anything. Why? Because you understand yourself. And that's the most important thing.
Right before we all locked down, I was trying to blend my two joys, and I was going to do a LinkedIn video where I was making an analogy between my beer league hockey goaltending and sales. And we'd written out the script, and it was kind of fun. I was saying there were these 3 analogies that were so unique and different. First of all, I had to prepare to win. And we say that a lot with a lot of folks who are listening to this, might be sales development reps. They do demand generation all day, every day. But actually coming in, recording yourself a couple of times when you're leaving voicemails, make sure you've got the right attitude, energy, enthusiasm. Are you in your best self? All those kind of good things. And I, certainly when I play these days, it's so important to prep up, because I'm 55. So the big difference between your age and my age is you actually need a warm up, to start moving around. The second thing was that because the position had changed so much, it was a completely different set of skills you needed to be effective. You're not going to poke check somebody at the hash marks anymore and make that kind of commitment. You don't need to. So staying current with best practices, which we're always sort of changing and evolving, and still do as a goalie. And then finally, leveraging some technology to help. So the goaltending equipment today is so good that the technology enables you to do something like block a shot. Take it, that's why everybody does a butterfly. You can actually take a puck in the chest and live to tell the tale. You couldn't do that when I played. Like you'd come out black and blue, you had to grab it or block it. So, all of these things, these constants about, I love your, today we're in professional sport and in sales, we can actually review what we're doing. So with call listening technology, it'll artificial intelligence, it'll analyze how many questions did we ask, what percentage of the time were we talking versus them talking. It'll actually analyze the behavior of the buyer. Are they intrigued or engaged in all this? And so all of this is about that self-reflection, going back, if in fact you want to get better, you've got to go back and you've got to analyze. And I'm sure you folks just agonize over video, every game, every shift, every decision you made, somebody's pointing out certain things to take away. Last thought or comment, and this has just been so great. The last point I'd pull out, which I think is fantastic, the coaches. You mentioned all of the different coaches that you have to get to your level of being one of the best in the world, at what you do, Nathan. I think actually that's a huge challenge today in business. And so there aren't, psychologists on the support team or the coaching team for a sales organization. But I actually think maybe there should be. We don't really have performance coaches, on a sales team or a lot of those things. Sometimes there's a sales enablement group, but it's almost a little bit, what the NHL might have been like in the 50s and 60s, where there was one coach and the assistant coach was kind of an equipment manager. And I think that's the stress we put on sales leaders today. They've got to be the single person, being this chameleon for the sales team. And it's really tricky. Tell me a little bit about resilience. So what are those things that help all of us who, deal with the daily challenges and the failures and the ups and downs of careers? It's certainly exacerbated or, even greater, of course, at your level, and every shift matters. How do you deal, where does the resilience come from? Where does the perseverance come from? How do you deal with adversity? Any tips for any of the folks listening on that?
It's funny. When we look at life in general, is this not one of the greatest topics that we could openly talk about
for hours.
Everybody? For everyone in this world, this is stuff we can only talk about, and there's no right or wrong way to deal with it. Why? Because people have to understand themselves. Let's start off with adversity first. If there was no adversity, would it be a goal? Would it be an achievement? Like, is that actually a goal? If I said today,
if it's too easy,
my goal, that's not building you. When I have things that are adversity in my life, okay, I love it. I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna sit down, and again, this is great for sales teams. This is great for anybody. Visualization, putting a plan together, then action. Okay, so there's my adversity. So for me, I'll reference an experiences that I've had over the last 2 years. So 2 hip reconstructions, 4 hernias.
Wow.
And I had my obliques repaired. Okay, so my physical adversity is staring me right in the face. I've come back and made it back to the NHL already through 2 hernias plus a hip reconstruction. I've already did it once. So, okay, I'm going to do it again. How do I do that? Okay, let's start with my daily habits. Okay, when I wake up, what's the first things I'm doing? What's my work ethic look like? Is it to where I need it to be? Again, we talk about honest reflection. Be honest. Is the work where it needs to be? Yes or no? And if you think about it, and people are like, well, I can't answer that. Breathe deeply. Meditate for a second, and you'll know the answer. Your body tells you the answer, and when you're lying to yourself. And not only that, it's going to hurt you in the end. So Here's one little tidbit for people. Which one weighs more, discipline or regret?
Wow, what a comment.
I know which one weighs more. And I'm not ever letting that creep into my life. That fuels me every single day because I know the mental aspect that it's going to have later on in life if I have that regret. Okay. Comes regret, comes mental health issues, comes addictions, it's a dark, dark, dark path to go down.
Yeah.
You can stop it today by doing the correct habits, doing the daily things, being honest with yourself, reflection, change it. If you don't like something, change it. If something makes you unhappy, change it. Back to adversity, get your action plan out. What's your action plan look like? Do you have 2 of them? Do you have 3 of them? Now sit down, visualize those action plans. Do you feel it? Do you see it? And I, you know what? It's funny. I actually do this with my kids already, and they're very young. I'll tell them to visualize something, and they'll visualize it. And I tell them to walk me through it step by step. I want to know what you saw. And because not because I care, it's because I just want them to have that imagination of seeing the whole thing develop in their head. So before a game, this is where I tell people it just becomes, if it's in your daily routine, believe me, it's just a habit. And so before a game, I take 5-7 minutes. I go down to the dark tunnel. This is probably, I would say, 15 minutes before warmups. I sit down, I plug my ears, I cover my eyes, I breathe. I go through every single play that could happen in different ways, different avenues. I make sure I see it. I make sure I know my escape routes. I make sure I know my plays where I can offload the puck for safety. I make sure I know all these things. Again, if someone's here, I'm here. If someone's there, I know my route's going to be here. I got to see it. I got to feel it. I go through all that before a game. That way, when I get out to the game, it's natural. I saw it. I already saw it. I saw that play. It was there. I already saw the puck going into that from this angle when I shot it. Why? Because I saw it. I forward rewind in my head. I saw the whole thing develop. I saw myself shooting. Visualization is so powerful. So if you're dealing with adversity, you have an action plan. You visualize that action plan. You see it. You feel it. If you don't see it, it can't happen. I tell people all the time, you have to see it. You have to see it because we talk about the power of belief. You have to see it to believe it. And vice versa, you have to believe it to see it. It works both ways. So again, if you believe in yourself, you believe in the work you're putting in, you believe in your plan, you believe in your goals, you believe in this, nothing should stop you. Not adversity should stop you. That's just going to make you stronger. So yeah, if you really believe in yourself, then you wouldn't be knocked down by that, variable that's in your way or obstacle that's looking right in front of you. You'll find ways to attack it and knock it down.
I don't know if there's anything we're going to say that can step up on or improve on that. Nathan, that's fantastic. Just fantastic. Listen, Nathan, because of what you do for a living, I could stay on here for hours talking about it. How would anybody listening here, if they wanted to learn more about you or connect in with you, how would they find you?
Okay, yeah, connect with me on Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm pretty social on there because as we talked about during this podcast, I have a passion for helping. I have a passion for sharing knowledge. I'm in the process right now of writing my own book, becoming an author, and yeah, I'm excited about that. It's been, it's very challenging. And it's fun in the meantime because you're constantly thinking. And I love doing that. But reach out to me. It may take a day or two, but I'll get there and I'll communicate with you. And I try to, do interactions with people on Instagram and stuff and try to keep it fun.
And what's the Instagram?
Yeah, it's Nathan Gerbe 7. That's it. At Nathan Gerbe 7. That's the Instagram. Check me out. I'm sharing, positive messages. I'm, different insights on there and some of my favorite quotes or books or just certain things so people can look at and whether it's a small little message that gets you through the day, use it. I tell people all the time, use a simple phrase to get you through a day. Honestly, use it. Say it in your head a million times. It's powerful.
It sure is. Hey, Nathan, what a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Mark. Thank you.